Good morning. Thank you, Sarah, for all that you do to support the Jewish Women's Foundation. And I'd also like to thank Charlene, Mara, and all of the staff at the Jewish Community Foundation for all of the technical support that has made this meeting possible. Oh my God, this is so cool. I have 3 screens of people, beautiful women that I'm looking at right now. It is so nice to see all of you from all across the country joining us for the Jewish Women's Foundation first and hopefully last virtual annual meeting. As we're adjusting to our temporary normal, we find one of the unexpected benefits is that we can share our local experiences with friends and family who are far away. Oh, there's my mom. My mother-in-law, my mom's in Florida. I got my mother-in-law in Palm Springs. We have colleagues from the Jewish Women's Foundations of New York and Pittsburgh on here today. Oh, I even have a friend or two from all the way in Scripps Ranch. I know I'd be sorry if we didn't mark this occasion with a screenshot or 2. So before we really get started, we're gonna pause for a few seconds and ask you to please smile into your camera so we can take a shot of everybody. Ready? Hold on to those smiles just for a minute. All right, thanks, beautiful ladies. The Jewish Women's Foundation of San Diego was the brainchild of visionary philanthropist Jan Tuttleman. We are a giving circle of over 70 determined women that over the last 18 years has granted over $2 million to improving the lives of Jewish women and girls. Each member is empowered to take part in our decision-making process as both a funder and an agent for change in the community. If you are one of the many JWF members here today, thank you for your support, and would you please wave and be recognized? Hi, everyone. Our Leadership Council is a smaller group of members who meet quarterly to help plan our events and guide the direction of the fund. Council members, would you please give a wave? By the sheer response to our invitation, it's clear that women are seeking out ways to help each other more than ever during this time of uncertainty. Each day, the news reveals how women are disproportionately facing new and intensifying challenges due to the pandemic. Women are taking on increased family responsibilities, suffering greater rates of domestic abuse, losing jobs, and risking illness on the front lines. As we know, women make up the majority of frontline service jobs as nurses, childcare providers, and maintenance workers. And on top of their day jobs, women are taking on more informal caretaking roles than they are used to. They're homeschooling their kids and caring for elderly relatives and neighbors who are stuck at home without their regular helpers. In a recent interview, Margaret Atwood summed up what many of us are feeling right now. She said, "Women can't help but channel their inner Florence Nightingale in times of crisis." Our work as advocates for Jewish women and girls is more important than ever before. In normal times, the needs of Jewish women and girls are underfunded. Now, the imbalance of need versus funding is magnified and can no longer be ignored. As we would expect, a network of women's funders are leading the way in supporting the needs of women and girls, and the Jewish Women's Foundation of San Diego is no different. When our community came together to establish the San Diego Jewish Community COVID-19 Emergency Fund, within days, the JWF Council approved a grant of $10,000 to support the effort. One of the first grants to be allocated was to current JWF beneficiary, the Gemach Jewish Gift Closet, a completely volunteer-driven resource for Jews in need. During the current crisis, the value of our other grantee partner, Coastal Roots Farm, has also increased. Their produce deliveries to Holocaust survivors are more welcome than ever by our seniors who are confined to their homes to an even greater degree than usual. Please enjoy these brief video updates from our grantees. Okay, give us a minute. We're new at this. Talk amongst yourselves while we figure it out. We promise we'll figure it out. We've only practiced this 300 times. Mara's a whiz. Now's your chance to say hello to everyone you know who's on the call.
Hi, Debbie.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go on, and then if we get the videos working, we will play them after. So let me tell you that we're in the third and last year funding the Gemach and Coastal Routes, which means we'll be convening a committee this fall to begin planning for our next round of grants. This process is the heart of the Jewish Women's Foundation, and we welcome both members and non-members to participate. If you would like more information about being on our grants committee, just let us know. In conclusion, I want to stress something we all know, but needs to be said out loud and proud. Giving back to women and girls gives back to everyone. Women are the glue that holds families together, and strong families make strong communities. This pandemic has exacerbated a need that Jewish women's foundations have been striving to illuminate for years. Now is our moment to really show how effective our funding can be. Please consider joining our efforts, as it is undeniable that due to the current world situation, our support of Jewish women and girls is more crucial than ever. Our sisters need us, and the Jewish Women's Foundation of San Diego will be there. Mara, do we have the videos or should we just move on?
Yeah, let's try this again.
Okay.
Greetings, everyone. This is Ellen Bort reporting on the Gemach's response to the pandemic. Thanks to the grant that we got from the emergency fund, we were able to financially assist about 67 people with amounts ranging from like $250 to $2,000, and it's an ongoing thing. Lately, we delivered boxes of vegetables that were provided to us by Coastal Routes Farms, and 2 weeks ago, in partnership with the Place Catering, we're delivering weekly Shabbat meals to about 57 people, and we're adding more people every week to the program, and we had an incredible feedback from that. Finally, our warehouse, we closed it for 6 weeks. We just reopened it, and it seems like people were like, since spring cleaning, we're hoarding things because just have a look at what we found the very first day that we reopened. So we are open once a week for drop-offs that happen at the very back area of the warehouse, and for pickups, we appointment only. So we stay in constant contact with the most vulnerable members of our community, and we maintain a Facebook page. Whenever we have resources that are available become known to us, we post it. We wish everyone good health, and thank you for your participation in the emergency fund, which has been a tremendous help. Bye.
Thank you to the Jewish Women's Foundation for the amazing support of Coastal Routes Farms Holocaust Survivor Program. I'm so pleased to be able to share some brief updates for the past year and since COVID-19 as we continue to ensure everyone's safety. We are currently serving 26 families with weekly and bi-monthly deliveries to homes from Oceanside down to Carmel Valley.
It's more than the box, is the connection and the goodness from these people, how they do their job.
In the past year, we have delivered to their homes 4,263 pounds of food. And since the start of COVID in March, we have delivered 583 pounds of food. For some of these distributions, we've been able to partner with the Community Resource Center to provide extra food staples. And twice during the time of COVID, we have also provided an additional 30 housebound senior and Holocaust survivor families in need with fresh, organic, nutrient-dense produce from the farm.
It's a miracle.
Once again, thank you so much, and this would not be possible without your support.
Don't you just love that lady who said it's a miracle? We're all making that happen. So thank you again. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome JWF Council Member Liz Niederlander-Coden and our special guest, Debbie Buchholz.
Liz, you're on mute.
Okay. Try that again. Thank you, Jessica. Debbie, it is our great privilege to have you join us today. Thank you so very much for sharing your valuable time with us. Debbie Buchholz is the managing director of La Jolla Playhouse and served as the Playhouse's general manager since 2002 until she became managing director in 2018. Debbie heads up the financial operations of the Playhouse, an institution with a budget of about $17 million a year and one of the highest profiles in American theater. In addition, Debbie is the first woman to serve as La Jolla Playhouse's managing director. Debbie is a graduate of UC San Diego and Harvard Law School, where she met her husband Todd, White House economic policy advisor to George H.W. Bush and noted author. Debbie and Todd currently live in Solana Beach and are the proud parents of Victoria, Catherine, and Alexia. After law school, Debbie served as a corporate attorney in New York City and Washington, D.C. Later, Debbie served as counsel to both the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts and the National Symphony Orchestra in Washington, D.C., before joining the Playhouse, and has also been an active member with theater on a national level. She is the vice president and longtime board member of the League of Resident Theaters, which represents 75 of the largest nonprofit theaters across the country, including the Playhouse and the Old Globe. During her tenure at La Jolla Playhouse, Debbie has been a part of some significant history, from the launch of the smash hit musical Jersey Boys in 2004 to the Broadway success of the Playhouse Bread Come From Away. Christopher Ashley, artistic director of La Jolla Playhouse, summed it up when Debbie was asked to serve as managing director. Debbie is the person who everybody wants in American theater right now. Her skill set is immense. She's a great manager, and she's really got her eye on how do you support the arts. She's personable and articulate and wise and really fun to work with. It's really a tribute to Debbie and the institution that we have this extraordinary person to step into this job. Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today. We have a tremendous turnout because of you.
Liz,
So Debbie, go ahead.
I was gonna say, thank you for reading everything my mother sent.
Well, Debbie, first, would you tell us about your background?
You actually have, I think, said everything that I would want to say about it. So it's an odd moment at this moment to be talking right now and to talking about theatrical stories. And I actually have to say, we did a little bit of a rehearsal yesterday to get ready for this. And watching, so flipping through 3 pages of faces right now and watching that video, I think actually that before Liz starts asking me questions, I think what I'd like to use the time to say instead is thank you to all of you. I know so many of the faces and yet don't know so many of the faces that are on these Zoom screens. And what you ladies do, and the few gentlemen as well, is so vitally important. You know, I come to you to speak as the head of another nonprofit, and I would actually say, in the context of after food and shelter and medical care, the things that feed the soul should be a very important thing that you also consider as you make all of your individual decisions. But as I watch what you guys do and support. It's amazing. So I know Liz and I are going to engage in a conversation, but I wanted to take the moment to say thank you to all of you for everything that all of you do for San Diego. I'm looking at Laura Gallinson, who I lived next door to for many years. I'm looking at board members of the La Jolla Playhouse. It's incredibly moving to me to participate in this event at this time and in this format. So so thank you.
Well, thank you, Debbie. We really, really appreciate it. Debbie, real quickly, what was it like to go to Harvard Law School? And you mentioned to me that you were the Julie McCoy of Harvard Law School, so I had to throw that in.
So I think that probably dates some of us if we know references to the Love Boat, and probably eliminates others from the conversation. I think when we were talking about it, what I meant by that was at UC San Diego, I was this incredibly conservative studying student who just focused academics. And that was the sort of the perception. And then I went to law school, and and I didn't change, but I was this social butterfly. And I think it was just setting the tone for two very different environments, if you will. For me, going to law, I loved law school. People ask me all the time when I mentor young people, should I go to law school? And I'm actually of the school of whether you want to be a lawyer or not. I think law school is a phenomenal thing. It's a great discipline. I found it fascinating and interesting, and I think there are so many things that you can do with it. So law school was great. Harvard was phenomenal. I think one of the things that came from it for me was it made me appreciate growing up in Southern California. I grew up in Southern California in a family initially led, my father died when I was very young. My mother was a single parent for a period of time before she remarried. Decisions were made and options and opportunities were given to me based on ability. And I never thought about that. I never thought about the fact that I was Jewish or that I was a woman and that there were quotas or anything like that until I got to Boston. And I don't think I suffered in any way from becoming aware of that in Boston, but I became aware in Boston of how lucky I had been to grow up in Southern California without any unnatural or arbitrary, if you will, restrictions on me. And I think actually, I will go back to quoting my mother again. I think the best thing for me I had a hard time deciding whether to go to Harvard because it was my first time away from home or whether to stay in Southern California. And I didn't know if I was smart enough or good enough or if I would succeed. And my mom said to me when I went that she would be really disappointed in me if I actually made law review and got straight A's, but I didn't go to the symphony, or I didn't go to see a game at Fenway, or I didn't go to the Gardner Museum, which was one of her favorites, because I would have taken 3 years out of my life instead of it being 3 years of my life. And I think that's actually, that I've lived by that all of my life because my father died very young. But I think actually it's a really important thing to remember at this moment as well. And we keep talking about this moment as a pause and things like that. And I would argue that it shouldn't be a pause. There's actually a great, I think we've all read about how Shakespeare wrote King Lear during moments of the bubonic plague. There's a great Orson Welles quote from The Third Man that comes, it was made at the end of the Second World War, that said that, in Italy, I'm going to paraphrase it and hopefully not butcher it. In Italy, over 30 years of the Borgias, there was terror and bloodshed and murder. But during that time, you got Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci and the Renaissance, and 500 years of quiet and peace in Switzerland, and you got the cuckoo clock. And so this is this weird moment in time, but I actually argue against the idea that it's just a pause. I think there's giving and creativity and reflection and all sorts of opportunity for it to be a different kind of moment. So I think that's quite a deviation from the question, how was it to go to Harvard Law School? But I have meandered away from the question, so.
No, that's excellent, and we really appreciate it. It's very helpful. But tell us a little bit about what it was like at the Kennedy Center and the National Symphony Orchestra, and how you ended up at the Playhouse. Actually, if I can say a little bit further back, how I ended up at the National Symphony Orchestra, and I think
it's advice I give again to my daughters and to young lawyers coming out of law school or people coming out of business school and sort of making decisions about plans that they have or what they want to do. I had started in New York as a corporate lawyer. I went to Washington, D.C. following my husband when he joined the first Bush administration, and ended up as a municipal bond lawyer, which if there are any municipal bond lawyers on the phone, I apologize because I'm about to say it was a really boring thing to do. I didn't like it at all. And I was looking to do something more interesting. I had gone to law school having worked on Gary Hart's presidential campaign. So it tells you that my husband and I are a mixed marriage. We're both Jewish, but he is a Republican and I am a Democrat. And we did that before James Carville and Mary Madeline made it trendy. So I felt like I was a little limited in what I could do politically because I wasn't sure that how that balance would achieve. So I was looking to do something else, and sort of through a friend of a friend of a friend, and actually a friend of my husband's, I met the chairman of the Kennedy Center, who was looking for, as he put it, a young numerate lawyer with an interest in the arts. And I ended up first as his special assistant, and then as the in-house counsel, and then as the associate general counsel for the Kennedy Center and the National Symphony Orchestra. And it was phenomenal, and it actually taught me that the best way to manage and lead, because I had no authority and lots of responsibility, was that people have to actually want to follow you to some extent, or want to collaborate with you, and want to do the things that you want them to do. So I had to sort of persuade them that the best way for them to interact with me was to want to work with me, because if we worked together, we would all stay out of trouble. An overwhelming amount of what I did was labor management relations. There were 7 unions at the Kennedy Center that negotiated every 3 years. And so a lot of what we did was managing labor relations. It certainly informed how I manage going forward. Ideally, you manage people who want to do and believe in the things that you want to do with them, and that it's a with rather than a to or a for them. Liz, you're mute.
How did you end up at the Playhouse?
Well, somehow my husband and I ended up with 3 children in Washington, D.C. I mean, generally it came about in the normal way, but we were the only members of our family. When my mom remarried, she married a man who was divorced but had custody of his kids. And so we were a family of 7 children, and Todd's family, my husband's family, had all, as he put it, he was retroactively from Southern California, because though he grew up in New Jersey, his family all moved out to California. And so we were raising 3 children in Washington, D.C. when all of their grandparents and cousins and such were in California. And it just sort of seemed like my eldest was 8. It was either time to be quiet and buy a house in DC and acknowledge we were staying there, or move to San Diego. My husband was completely unwilling to move to Los Angeles. He was willing to go to San Diego, and I was perfectly happy to go either. So we moved, and through one of my trustees at the Kennedy Center, he suggested that I meet a trustee of La Jolla Playhouse who, as he put it, was charitable and interested in the arts. And that was Joan Jacobs, who is, I think that was probably the understatement of the world. She is indeed charitable and interested in the arts. And so it was at a time when the symphony was coming out of bankruptcy and changing, and the La Jolla Playhouse was building a new building on the campus and looking to become a year-round institution. And she sent my resume after meeting me and having a cup of coffee, because she wasn't going to send my resume just based on somebody else's recommendation, to the fellow who was the managing director of the Playhouse at the time, who said, I don't know how Joe knew I was going to be looking for a general manager, but you look like you'd be great. And so it was lovely and serendipitous that they happened to be getting ready to look right when my resume showed up on their desk. I've been there ever since. It's been 18 years.
Wow. Fantastic. Okay, well, as the first managing director of La Jolla Playhouse and one of the only female managing directors of any theater, regional or Broadway, do you see an increase in the leadership roles of women in the theater community? And does being a woman make any difference to you personally in your leadership role?
So I think that, again, that's a great question. The West Coast tends to lead on that. So regional theaters on the West Coast actually have a number of women who are managing them. So South Coast Rep and now Center Theater Group in Los Angeles, Berkeley Rep, ACT, are all led by women. They're all fantastic regional theaters. And interestingly, the minute you go kind of east of California, there are very few regional theaters that are led by women. And I think that women just have a lot less, I think women have a lot less arbitrary restrictions on them in California and on the West than they do as you move east. I think there's still a lot of baggage that happens as you get out of California. So I think that probably my management style is informed by the fact that I'm a parent of 3 very strong women, that I'm married to a man who is respectful of my career and treats it and has always treated it equally, even though historically I've not made as much money as he has. I think that I'm very much a product of a very strong mother and very strong grandmothers as well. So I think that that probably impacts I think that probably has an impact on how I manage. I manage collaboratively, I like to think. I think that the regional theater model is an interesting one, and it looks like it's sort of set up to fail. It's a nonprofit that has 2 CEOs. You have an artistic director and a managing director. And so the artistic director gets to decide what we're doing, and the managing director gets to decide how much that person, the artistic director, gets to spend on the art. It is actually a structure that if the 2 people in it, like a marriage, don't actually love and respect each other and believe that neither one of them could do the job without the other person doing their job, then it doesn't work. I'm unbelievably lucky. Christopher Ashley is probably the most sought after, most desirable, most intelligent, most collaborative artistic director that anyone could have. San Diego is unbelievably lucky to have him here. And it makes for a beautiful partnership. One of the things I love the most is when I got the job of being the managing director, I came home and my husband announced it at the dinner table to my girls and then said, and your mom is the first female managing director of the La Jolla Playhouse. And they thought that was not a big deal at all. I mean, to them, it was just a given that I was going to get this job and it didn't matter. And I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was actually one of the best aspects of the change, that the fact of me being female actually made no difference whatsoever to my girls. And I tell that story a lot, to be perfectly honest, that the fact of me being the first female managing director was completely irrelevant to my daughters.
I love it. Love it, love it. Okay, do your Jewish values inform what you do? And does Judaism play a role in what you do?
Oh, I think my Jewish values inform what I do on a number of different levels. I've been a member of the board of Temple Salel for many, many years. And I've always treated the rabbi there as if he's the artistic, well, now Alexis Berg is a new rabbi and she's a female, but for very many years it was David Frank. And I think he always knew I treated him like an artistic director in the same way that we do. And so I think that my Jewish values as a board member and my artistic values as a board member of Temple Salel actually not collided, but worked together quite nicely. I mean, the theater, I think absolutely my Jewish value. I mean, on a very broad level, if you think about the buckets of what makes up what I perceive as my Jewish values, I would say that they're sort of, there's 3 buckets. There's sort of community and family. There's respect for like knowledge and learning. And then there's like aspirational community, aspirational who we want to be as a society, and a tikkun olam focus on saving the world. And obviously the third is the first in the particular group of people I'm looking at on my screen to some extent, but probably not. The knowledge base concept of Judaism and the family base. And so I think that there's an enormous amount of overlap of those values in the theatrical world. I think that I think theater very much is about reflecting aspirations of society and of artists and what we want our world to be. That making theater is very much a communal event, and is informed by what we want, again, the world that we're trying to create, and reflecting a world that we hope we will achieve. And as I actually watch the Broadway community, which I think as much as any community in the world that's been decimated by what's going on in the world. I mean, there's basically 100% unemployment amongst a group of people who tend to live job to job to job. There is 100% lack of income for producers and for theater owners and for all of the ancillary and the jobs that surround commercial theater, restaurants and all and shops and rehearsal studios and all of that. It's a community that has instantly organized to care for not only itself and most vulnerable members, which I think just so reflects Judaic values, but to also reach out beyond just their community as well. And it's a creative community. So when you think about, when you hear about the creativity that happened in concentration camps, and I would be completely disrespectful to relate that to right now, but the idea of in moment of when artists are really not knowing where their next dollar is going to come from, artists are creating and giving and sharing. So I think there's an enormous amount of overlap of my Jewish values, but just not just my Jewish values. I think all Jewish values in theater and what people hope to get from theater, and frankly, why people go to the theater. You know, I've had so many people say to me, I can't believe I don't go to the theater. I go on Friday nights. It's like going to shul. And now when we can't go to shul and we can't go to the theater, I think there's enormous amount of overlap of loss in that, in the community of sharing that we value, the reason that we do these things.
Well, actually, that leads to my next question, because it's a critical question. What is happening currently with theater both on Broadway and regionally? How do you see the future of theater during and after the pandemic? And when do you think Broadway and the Playhouse will open up?
Wow. Let's see. So going back to what is happening now, I think there's a variety of things, and it sort of depends on resources and cash in hand for theaters. So on Broadway right now, everybody is pausing and waiting, and a lot of work is being developed, but obviously theaters are dark. I think in the regions, because unlike at this moment, because everybody had to shut down basically simultaneously, there was a from Wednesday to Sunday or Monday, there was a very short period of time where everybody shut down. And so it happened to everyone basically at once. Where people were in processes was very different of, did you have a show up and running? Were you in rehearsal? Were you about to have a gala? We were 3 days away from our annual gala. We were 2 weeks away from the end of our fiscal year. But everybody was in a different place in that sense, but everybody shut down and stopped at the exact same moment. And I think that when we all start up again, we probably, because the nation is so big and there are different rules and there's not a cohesive federal response to this, that we will all start in different ways. And so we'll be slightly different in different ways. There are so many questions to answer. The La Jolla Playhouse is working. We are developing work. We're all remote. We are developing, I hope some of you are seeing some amazing work that is meant specifically and being created to be experienced in this moment, to be experienced remotely, digitally for this. We made the decision because we didn't have great recordings of prior productions that we were not going to distribute out for you to see, you know, 3 years ago's version of a musical that has since moved to Broadway. Some theaters, I mean, theaters are doing different things. I think that the when we can come back depends on things. First, when can we legally? When do our governmental authorities say that it is safe to do so? When can we create an environment that is truly safe, physically and emotionally, for our staff and our artists, our companies, as we call them, the acting and production companies? And then equally important, how do we create an environment that an audience is comfortable walking back into the theater? You know, the audience for regional theater is overwhelmingly older and one of the more risk groups to come back in. We're lucky. Nonprofit theater doesn't rely only on ticket sales for making money, so for paying our bills. So we will be able to come back in and say, we don't have to sell at 100% capacity in order to do this. We don't have to, we aren't relying specifically and 100% on our box office to make this work. But I don't know when audiences are going to feel comfortable coming back into the theater. I've had people say to me, not coming back until there's a vaccine. I've had other people say to me, I'm coming back the minute I can because I can't live without theater. And I've heard everything in between. So figuring out a way to make people feel comfortable and safe in that is going to be different. And I think, actually, I'm going to quote Barry Edelstein. He's the artistic director at the Old Globe, and a lovely and smart and brilliant director, almost as brilliant as my artistic director. But Barry, announced, the Old Globe had to announce the closing, that Shakespeare won't happen this summer at the Globe, which is devastating for San Diego, to be honest. And in saying that, he said, we're trying to stay nimble and flexible and able to do whatever we can do. And this reflects where the La Jolla Playhouse is as well. Because on Friday, you say something can't be done and it isn't the case on Friday, and on Monday, it's the new norm. And that is so true of kind of everything. Everything changes so quickly. So I wish I had an answer that was better than that about where we will be and when we will open up. I think in the meantime, the goal is to be as supportive of the San Diego artistic community, the artists who create art, our staff, and our audiences. We've been sending out masks to our donors and our staff that our costume shop has made. If you're on this call and you would like a mask, if you would send, email me, and our costume shop would love to send you a mask. We are trying to be as supportive of our community as we can be. That's our responsibility as an art making community. Beyond that, hopefully we will be back soon.
So we have time for one more question. And I know I can't ask you which is your favorite show, but what show or what experiences have you enjoyed in particular, and what do you love most about your job?
I love almost everything about my job, except when I have to argue with Chris about how much money he gets to spend on a show, which doesn't happen very often. I have the pleasure and honor and joy of working with so I'm not a creative person. I'm about as uncreative as they come. And I have birthed creative people. I have married a creative person, but I'm not. And the joy of my job is that I get to work with creative people and make it so their artistic visions get to happen. If I do my job well and I manage people and money well, then creative people get to maximize their creativity. And that to me is just unbelievably joyful and fulfilling. So that's my favorite part of my job. I think at this moment, it would be disingenuous to not say at this moment in time, sort of like your children, at any moment in time, one of them might be your favorite, but overall, none of them are your favorite. They're all your favorites. At this moment in time, it's really hard not to think about Come From Away. I think many of you either have seen it or know it. It's not the story of 9/11, it's the story of 9/12, what happened after September 11th in a little town in Gander, Newfoundland, where a town of 6,000 people, where 7,000 people got off of airplanes, and the town had to figure out how to take care of them. And that was emotionally and physically and with food and with lodging and all of that. And I feel like we're in this interesting, I hope we're in an interesting come from away moment. I fear sometimes as I look at the fact that in my life, I'm very lucky. This is merely an inconvenience to me at this moment, but it's not an inconvenience to other people. I mean, this moment in time defines disproportionate impact, not just on a gender basis, but in so many other ways. And I hope that what comes out of this is art that reflects the disproportionate impact and the fact that that's bad and that's wrong and that's not a good thing about our society. And that like Come From Away, that you can create art that highlights what's right about society and hopefully galvanizes people to do what's right or to do better by virtue of showing them their better selves. And I take that away from Come From Away at every moment. I remember during rehearsal watching it over and over again, and at some point saying to Chris, I think sorry, during previews, not during rehearsal, saying to Chris, Chris directed that show and won a Tony Award for that show, I might add. I said to him, you know, it's so amazing. You really come out of it. I think people relate to it so much because you come out of it saying, I could have done that thing. Like, it's a realistic thing. I could have brought toilet paper to the Elks Club. I could have made food. I could have done something and it would have been impactful in some way. And he said, well, of course you do, because we tell you 6 times during the show, you'd have done the same. And I thought about it and I thought, oh my God, that's so manipulative. But it's not. It's art doing exactly what art is supposed to do, showing society either its better or worse self, and hopefully galvanizing us to be that better self that we all know we can be. So at this moment in time, my favorite child is absolutely Come From Away, but there are others as well.
Well, Debbie, unfortunately, in the interest of time, we have to stop here, and we have a list of questions a mile long, so I'm sorry we can't ask them all. But we want to say thank you so much for your time. You are extraordinary. If you can give us some contact information where people can request masks, that would be great. That is one of our questions.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, you and Sarah, a couple of other people on this call have my email address. Actually, so I think if you would just gather the, if people would send me a list, and we will figure out over the next week or so how we mail out some masks. If you have participated on this call, then you are giving back to our community in the same way that we would like to help support you. I warn you, these are not boring masks. They are made from leftover material in our costume shop.
Hold on, I'll show you a couple.
That's amazing.
Is Karen going to get her mask?
Yes, she is.
So anyhow, they are not boring. They do not look like the masks that the hospitals give you. They have patterns and a variety of different things. There's Karen. Okay.
Karen, talk so you're the speaker.
Oh, they are not boring. Here's one.
Love it.
And another.
Ooh.
And they are they are extremely well done. And they are very covering.
Okay, well, thank you. Back to Debbie. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your precious time. You are wonderful. I told you last night that I want to come back as Debbie Buckholtz in my next life. But truly, thank you so much for everything. You are fantastic. Everyone in San Diego loves the Playhouse, and you're the brains behind it. So thank you again for everything. And for your heartfelt and very honest dialogue today. We really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Bravo.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for so much. There's so many of you who I can honestly say thank you all for your support of the Playhouse, because there are so many of you on this call who I know and I see who support the Playhouse. And thank you, more importantly at this moment, for everything that you all are doing, both through JWF, but in all of the other ways I know you do as well to help San Diego and the rest of the community at this time. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. And now, just if you guys will give us just a few last minutes, I'd like to introduce Beth Searle, CEO of Jewish Community Foundation. Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Beth.
Hi, everybody. Debbie, that was awesome. Thank you so much for your comments today. And I want you to know you have tonight, as we will be talking tonight over dinner about how we can think about the pandemic as a period of time of our life, not out of our life. And I think that's really a great conversation. I have And to Jessica, oh, there you are. I'm looking at my screen here. Like everyone else, it is just phenomenal to just see all these faces. It just really brings chills because it's been so long since I've been in the company of a vibrant group of women. I also want to thank Sarah and Mara and Charlene. I thought I would telling you a bit about what the foundation is up COVID-19. As many of you probably know, we did establish, along with the Leishtag Foundation and the Federation, a Jewish community COVID-19 emergency fund, and it has raised substantial dollars, just around $2 million, and we've probably got about a third of that out the door in a combination of grants and loans, and Gemach has also received grants. We're very focused on getting money out the door to organizations that can get to people who need food, medicine, shelter, rent payments and things like that. And we're also very focused on sustaining the Jewish community and the foundation and infrastructure of the Jewish community. And so we made a number of emergency loans to help organizations just stay afloat and make their payroll. So we didn't want to see any more people laid off than absolutely necessary. And now we're really starting to talk to organizations about the longer term needs of employment help and psychological help and more food and shelter, et cetera. So we're really grateful. Many of you that I see on this call have made donations to that fund. So thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And that focuses on the Jewish community. We have two other funds, a public health fund and a vulnerable persons fund that are really addressing needs in San Diego, in the secular community. And we're grateful for many of you who have donated to that as well. And we've had an RFP out. We've just started to receive applications. So we are, in addition to doing all the work the foundation always does, and kudos to my team for doing it all remotely, we've also, taken on, of course, with everybody else, efforts to help address the needs that have come out of COVID-19 as much as we possibly can. I have really one other announcement. Well, if you'd like to know any more about those efforts, please reach out. We'd be happy to share with them. And we are very grateful for JWF's grant to the fund. That was especially touching to me personally. So thank you all, and for how quickly you did it. It was just wonderful. I want to say Yasher Koach and Mazel Tov to Charlene Wallach and Janet Ashetel, who I know are here in this mass of faces somewhere. Both of them have been selected as Women of Valor this year, and they both really deserve it. And so I am beyond honored to get to work with both of them. Charlene's on our staff, and Janet is currently the chair of the board of the Jewish Community Foundation, as well as on the leadership council of JWF. So they are both totally women of valor. So thank you to both of you for everything that you do for JWF and for the whole community. And then lastly, and I appreciated, Debbie, your comments on Jewish values. I always try when I speak to any group about any event that JCF does to bring a relevant piece of Jewish thing or value to me. Last Shabbos, I don't know if any of you logged into your synagogue services. I have heard from several rabbis that synagogue attendance virtually is up way beyond what synagogue attendance is in person usually. So if you were part of Saturday morning services, Shabbat morning services last weekend, you know that we read from Bechukotai, and that is at the very end of Leviticus. So we finished a book of the Torah. And at the end of a book of the Torah, you say, chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek, which basically means, be strong, may you be strengthened. And I wanted to leave us today with a prayer and a wish for all of you as individuals and for us as a community, both in San Diego, Jewishly, and for the planet, that we might be strong during this time, and that as a community, we would be strengthened as we emerge from this. So on that prayerful note, thank you again to Debbie. That was so fabulous. And to Liz, great facilitation. Jessica, the whole leadership council. This is one of my favorite events of the JCF year. I'm sorry that it wasn't in person, and I hope and pray that it will be again next year. Sarah, am I signing off or am I sending it back to you? You're on mute. Our favorite expression
It has
today.
to be said. It has to be said at some point during a call.
Yes, you have to say you're on mute.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And I did promise a few minutes of snoozing time. So we will take off your mute buttons and you guys can visit for a little bit if it doesn't become so crazy amongst, I believe we have still over 60 people on the call. So just let the schmoozing begin. Thank you so much.
Possible. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great to see everyone.
Thanks so much, Debbie. Just so great.
It was so great. Hi, Karen. Bye, everybody.
Hey.
Thanks, Liz.
Great. Really
By the
good.
way, Woman of Valor has been written and produced and run by Ali Viterbi, who is in the playwriting program at the graduate playwriting program at UCSD. Small world.
Hi, Joyce.
Great program.
Yeah, it was terrific.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Hi,
Stay
Marcia.
safe
Thank
and
you.
healthy.
Bye,
Bye,
Karen.
Good to see
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye, Jess.
Hi. $100 for anyone who can guess which one is my mom.
Oh,
It's a bet. Take the bet.
I just want to know how Mom likes the blonde hair.
Love it. I figured. Great job, Liz.
Thank you. And I have my sister on this call too, although she may have hung up. Amy Niederlander.
And my sister's
And my
on the call,
sister.
too.
I have my sister on this call too.
Mine too.
Hi, Marcy.
Bye, everybody. Lisa on the call.
Bye.
bye-bye.
Stay healthy.
And my husband, Dan Coden, is on this call too.
Dr.
My husband was on the call too, but I don't know where he is now.
Hey, Dr. Bob.
And Dr. Bob. He's always welcome.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, JW.
Pleasure.
Thank you to my good friend from Scripps Ranch.
Thank you, Jess. Awesome program. Thank you, everybody.
So nice seeing you all. We're down to one screen. Bye.
Adios.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
You get the Tony